Lisa. This week I'd like to share with you a couple of knitting projects, one that's completed and one that I have just started on. Knitting videos will be a little bit further spread out as I only knit maybe about an hour or so a day on average, so it takes me a while sometimes to complete something. Now, this first project is Shawl. I recorded a couple of weeks ago how this was going and some of my concerns with it. So let's take a look at that first. So I wanted to show you where I am with this shawl and the concern that I have at this particular point with it. First of all, let's look at the yarn that I'm using. I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. That's the yarn. And it had a lot of orange in it, and I'm not an orange person, at least not in my clothing. It just doesn't look good with my coloring. So there was orange at the beginning of the ball, so I cut that off, and then when I got to the orange further along, I cut that as well, because there were areas where the yarn was pretty solid in color and I could cut it and it didn't really show in the transition. So what I have is more purple. I kind of regretted that when I got to the point of doing this pattern and it was all in this really dark color. If I'd left the orange on there, I might have had a lighter color to begin my pattern. But here's my concern, is all this rolling up. The pattern says that the beginning, the first few stitches that you do, will curl and that it'll block out. But it's all curling, you know, there's a lot of curling here. So I'm hoping that this is going to block out. I don't have a lot of experience making shawls, so I don't know if that's going to work. My intention with the shawl, you know, is instead of wrapping it around my shoulders, I am planning to wear it as I saw the lady who owns the knitting store that I go to, Hazel, had on a shawl the other day and wore it as a scarf, and she had it like this, so it went around this way, and that's my plan. And it will be a little bit more bunched up that way, but I don't want it to be rolled up with all of this purl stitching showing on the front, so I'm hoping it's going to block out. So that's my concern with the shawl right now. What it's supposed to look like is this. It's the Van Ness shawl from Ravelry. This is a free Ravelry pattern. I'm using yarn that I won at a Christmas party, so I don't have anything in this except my time. So we'll see if it turns out like this when we get done. But I think it's a beautiful pattern. I'm really enjoying working it. I'm not fabulous with this kind of fine yarn, but we'll see how it looks once it's blocked. But this is where it is at this point. I don't have that many more rows. Probably less than 20 rows at this point. So I did finish the shawl, and it did block out, sort of. Let me show you what's going on. First of all, you can see I was wrapping it over my shoulder. I figured out that this particular pattern, if I tried to put it around like the way I wanted to, I was going to lose a lot of this pattern, and I still have some rolling. It blocked out a lot better than I thought it was going to block, but it still curls at the top. Now, my friend Susan, who is an expert, I believe, an expert on shawls, she does lots of shawls, does a beautiful job, said that I could have gotten this part blocked out straight, but I would have had to have pulled this down a lot. And this is single ply yarn, and she said that would have been really hard on the yarn. Now, I didn't know all that. That's knitting knowledge beyond what I have. I just felt like it was going to stretch the design too much if I pulled this down, and I didn't think it would be that big deal. I thought I could just sort of fold it under when I wear it. I may actually have to tack this underneath to get it to not flip over. But in general, I'm very pleased with it, and I think it is a beautiful, beautiful pattern. I really enjoyed working it too. It also improved my chart reading techniques, because I tried to use the written part of the pattern, and I did that for a few rows pretty well, but then I got to where I needed the chart to help keep me on track. And the chart is this. It's almost, at least to me, intimidating looking. Something I found that helped me with the chart and keeping up with the rows is I took a piece of washi tape and I just moved the washi tape along as I went up to highlight which row that I was on. So that's the approach that I took for that particular pattern. And as I said in the other part of the video, I did cut some of this yellow orange out at the beginning and here, and I also ended up cutting some of the purple out so that I could end with a lighter color down here at the bottom, because I really wanted that to show, and lighter colors show your pattern better than darker colors. And it was just sort of a coincidence that I ended up with this fuchsia row on the very, very bottom, and that's really my favorite color out of the whole thing. So so I think it came out nice, and I'm pleased with it. And again, I just wanted it for a little scarf rather than a shawl. Now, what I'm just starting on, this yarn is from Shawl, and it's the ba yarn. Ba, like a sheep. I've used this before, and it's a wool yarn. It knits beautifully. I really enjoy working with it, and the colors are always so gorgeous. It's not cheap yarn, so I'm a little stingy when I buy it, and I have only bought 2 hanks of this, and I hope I have enough to do a sleeveless sweater. The last time I did this, I had made a vest, and it was a pretty large vest in terms of, I had a lot of coverage. The neckline even came up really high. But I used every scrap of yarn. I mean, down to, I might have had a piece 2 feet long left. That was it. So I hope I have enough here. I can get more of it if I need to, but I'd rather not. So I'm looking at doing a sleeveless sweater, and this is the pattern, and this is how it's coming along so far. The pattern stitch is from this book, A Second Treasury of Knitting Patterns by Barbara Walker. I have had this one, the first set of knitting patterns, for many, many years. The lady who taught me to knit, a wonderful woman in my life, gave me this. She was moving, and she passed this along to me. And when I came back to knitting, I used it a lot. I can't remember if I used it much when I first got it, but I used it a lot when I started back to knitting, and worked the patterns out of here. And one of my friends in my knitting group loaned me some books, and I discovered there were more of them. So I bought the second and the third one. The third one are all charted patterns. The second one has them, like the first one, in written instructions, and the pictures, little samples of each one. This is the one that I am doing. It's called Flame Chevron, and it shows up, you know, beautifully in this solid color. In my fabric, it's going to probably just create more texture and alleviate boredom, so that I won't get tired of doing stockinette stitch all the way through just to get my sleeveless shell that I'm trying to create. I'm going to wear this with a shrug that I've had for a long time and just haven't had anything to go with. So that's my plan with it anyway. What I haven't decided at this point is how far up I'm going with the pattern. The pattern, I believe, is a little too open to use it. Since I don't plan to wear something, a top under this, this is a little bit too open, I think, to go all the way up with it. So I'm going to have to stop somewhere, and I'm looking at maybe doing, I'm in the second pattern repeat, maybe finishing the second pattern repeat and having about 6 inches or so of pattern, and then the rest of it in stockinette stitch. So this is the back. And if I haven't made it too big, I want it to be a little bit boxier shape. It's what I'm going for, a little shorter, a little boxier than some of the tops that I've made. So it'll come, you know, maybe 4 inches or so below the waist, and not as long as some of the other things that I've been doing. So that's what I'm working on knitting wise. It'll be a while, but eventually I'll show you the completed and maybe the in process version of this. I have yarn to make sweaters more for fall and winter, but I was just in the mood to do something light, something summery, and so I hope to have this done by sometime probably in early August and get some wear out of it this season. It doesn't really get cold here until late October at the earliest, and I can probably wear it through September for sure. Now, while I have the camera going, I'll give you a little sneak peek at what else is going on in the workroom. I had to take a break this week and make some cushions for my mother, but I did, right before I started the cushions, I got my quilt ready to quilt, my improv quilt, and I have, after I got the cushions done, started doing some quilting with that. So let's swing the camera around and you can see those things. Now, I've got some patchwork there, laying there that I worked on the other day, but over here is my improv quilt on the sewing machine. Oops. sorry about that, on the sewing machine, and I'm starting to do my swirls here, and I've had some challenges more with the straight quilting than with the swirls, but I'll talk about that in a later video and some of the patchwork and things that I have going on. So thanks very much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd love to get a like, and if you know other knitters that you'd like to share the video with, I would really appreciate it. Thanks so much.